Hello, STEM Sharks. We're going to talk topic sentences. So a topic sentence is just that. It is a sentence in the paragraph that states the topic of the whole paragraph. It's usually the first sentence that helps us as readers when a writer will put that topic sentence in the very beginning because we use it as a way to predict what the rest of the paragraph is going to be about. So we're going to take a look at a writing sample here together, and we're going to evaluate my topic sentences, see if what I can do to revise them and make them the best they can be. So we're going to use these criteria right here, right? That they must be clear, it must be an interesting sentence, and I don't want to start the paragraph with a specific detail. So if I use those as a guide for this project, this is part of the Urban Legends research project. So pretend that I don't have this notice to students about how it's a first draft. Instead, let's pretend I have some fabulously exciting title about alligators in the sewers of New York City. Right? So if you read that exciting title, which I still have to come up with, if you read that exciting title, then you'll know that the whole topic of all of these paragraphs is about the alligators in the New York City sewers and about that urban legend. All right, so I know that much as a reader. So let's take a look at the first paragraph that I have here, and we're going to double check. So this is my topic sentence, and so we're going to double check if I've done a good job in making a topic sentence that is clear, right? The reader, you can't read my mind. So I want to make sure that it's really clearly stating what the whole paragraph is about. I want it to be interesting. And I want to make sure that it's not starting that paragraph with a really specific detail. All right, so let's take a look. In the early 1900s, there were sightings of alligators in public sewers near Manhattan and along the Bronx River. By the late 1930s, there was a gator captured and killed in Harlem and then in the East River in Brooklyn again. All right, so I'm already noticing that as I read this in the early 1900s, I'm thinking that the rest of the paragraph is going to be about that time, right? That if there's multiple sightings, that maybe instead what I'm going to learn about are, okay, what were those sightings? Like maybe there were 3 or 4 of them, what exactly happened? If it was in the public sewers, how did the animals get there? Maybe around Manhattan, how did they get into the Bronx River? But right away in that next sentence, it jumps to the 1930s. And so by the late 1930s, there was a gator captured and killed in Harlem. But then this next sentence is about Teddy May, and he's a city sewer official that claimed for years that he had seen alligators down there. In fact, into the late 50s, he told stories of what he saw and verified that the alligators were in fact down there. But then the 1980s brought another sighting in a reservoir in Westchester County. In the 80s, again, though, a New York City sewer chief said, no, this is an urban legend. And then my last sentence here is about the last 3 decades. There were still reports of alligators lost in the New York area streets and water bodies. So my subjects of the sentences in the rest of this paragraph seem to be very time-centered. So it's about the last 3 decades, about the 80s, into the 50s, up here in the 30s, but that it all started in the 1990s. So there's a lot of chronological information here. All right, if I know that, then I think of what I've done here is I started the paragraph with a specific detail. So I don't think I have a topic sentence at all. All right, I got to draft one of those then, right? So let me change the color of the type. That helps me. As I'm writing, I oftentimes will use color with different sentences just to help as I'm reading and rereading and revising my work. That helps as a clue for me, right? So I don't have a topic sentence. I got to go back and do that. All right, so let's see. If it's chronological, that means it's going to cover time, right? And I want my readers to know that this is going to be a series of time events, right? But I want them to know right away too that it's this urban legend of the alligators in the sewers and that it's in New York City. Because all of these are about the same place, right? About New York City, lost in New York City. So that does stay the same. So I might want to state that in the first sentence so that my readers can kind of predict that, right? That it's all going to be at least centered around the same place. Okay, so there is an urban legend of alligators, in the New York City sewers. Or maybe, yeah, New York City sewers. Okay, but that still doesn't get at the time piece. So I think I might want to put that actually in the beginning. What if I said for the past 100 years, there's an urban legend of, I don't know if I like the phrasing of that. So let me start a little fresh. For the past 100 years, there have been continued sightings or claims, because I use the word sightings here. All right, so I use the word sightings in this sentence. So I don't want to use it. I want to say something about claims. And I want to emphasize, I want to use this word continued here because that will help my readers understand that I'm going to show a list, right? I'm going to explain and give them details about these continued, like on and on. Whoops, where did the 50s go? There it is. The 50s into the 80s, right? All right, so continued claims that alligators are living in the New York City sewers. So let me take that out. I think I might want to keep that urban legend because I'm pretty sure that my title, when it is dramatic and fantastic and amazing, is not going to actually state urban legends, but that is what my paper is about. It's about a specific urban legend. So I think maybe continued. There is a continued urban legend. Yeah. Let's try that. Oh my goodness. There is a repeating. Yes. Repeating urban legend. Yes. Okay. So this now has the time frame, right, for the past 100 years. I'm letting you know as a reader that it's going to be about a repeated urban legend. So there's going to be a bunch of times and all of these repetition details here, right? Like how that story keeps popping up over and over. Yes, and the topic is the alligators living in the New York City sewers. Excellent. All right, I'm really proud of that. That's great. I think, too, that stating the alligators in the New York City sewers, that is enough of like a way to engage the reader here. An urban legend, like, oh, okay, yes, tell me more, right? I'm hoping anyway. And the fact that it's been for the last 100 years. So that's a long time. Okay, so I think that's good. That's going to work for me for now. I might go back and play around with that word, actually, with the word choice, saying that. I just had an idea. Okay, alligators are lurking in the New York City sewers. Now, lurking is a creepier word, right? Like it's sketchy. So I think that's better than just living. Like they're living down there, having a good time, laughing it up. Like, no, they're lurking, right? That sets a little bit more of a tone of being kind of a mood to my writing. That's a little bit more spooky. All right, that's better. Good. Okay, so this next one, let's try this again. So here's my topic sentence. I'm going to highlight that and change the type just to help me focus, right? So the claim has not changed over time very much, okay? The story that gets passed, so again, what I'm thinking is that the whole paragraph then is going to be about the claim, like the story of that the alligators in the sewers, that hasn't really changed, that it's repeating, but it's always the same story, right? Okay, so the story that gets passed around is that there are alligators living in the sewers of New York City. Darn it. All right, so that seems a little bit repetitive from up above. All right, some of the versions I came across had variations on the specific details, such as the alligators were mutated into albinos due to the lack of light and that they were enormous in size. There are single alligators and rumors of whole colonies, depending on the version. The vast majority of the incidents where people have found alligators loose in New York City can be traced back to abandoned pets. It's possible to buy a pet alligator even through the mail. When they grow too big to take care of, people just turn them loose. Those that are rescued are put into zoos or animal sanctuaries. The claim that alligators could live and reproduce in the sewers has been debunked in multiple sources. And the reasons are the climate is too cold and the water in the sewer system is too toxic. All right. Well, what I'm noticing reading it out loud is I have several kind of subtopics here. First, I have this versions, right? So that's kind of the first idea, at least in my, or kind of important detail, right? That there's these different versions. And then the next couple sentences tell you what those versions are, right? Like the specific details of that. But then I have here that they're abandoned pets, actually. And so I'm going to highlight that as the next kind of subject of sorts that I'm talking about, the next topic. They grow too big and people turn them loose. Those rescued pets, okay, so that can still work. But the fact that it's been debunked, that multiple times they've said, actually, no, that's not possible, right? It's not possible for them to live down there. So I don't know if I can come up with a sentence in the beginning. The claim has not changed over time. Well, that's about the versions. I don't know how to get a sentence in there. Like, there isn't much change to the story, but in all of them, it's about abandoned pets, but it's not true. Like, that seems really wordy. So I think what I realize in my writing when I do this and when I notice this is that actually I think I'm trying to say too much in one paragraph. So I'm going to go back to the start of this sentence about the abandoned pets. And I think I'm going to create a whole new paragraph. And let's just see like how that works. I think I could come up with a topic sentence here about how they're about like they are these abandoned pets, but they can't survive down there. I feel like I can figure out how to put two topics together in a topic sentence, but then that allows me to focus on this sentence right here. So I think this whole paragraph, even though it's a little smaller, I think because I haven't added any evidence either, and so I might want to add a quote from one of my sources here to be like to give proof of what those different versions are. So I might leave a little comment to myself here, add quote from source to support my thinking. All right, so that would make the paragraph a little bit more substantial too. So yes, I think this is the right, as I talk through it, I think this is the right decision to separate that paragraph actually because there's multiple topics in it. Okay, so focus back on that topic sentence. The claim has not changed much over time. That's a pretty boring sentence. It's clear, right? Because the whole paragraph talks about versions, but I think I can do better. All right, so the story, there isn't much, maybe if I just try to play around with the word choice, right? There isn't much variation. That sounds more fancy, doesn't it? Variation to this urban legend over the century. Now, the century is about the last paragraph, hey? There isn't much variation to the, okay. I'm going to talk about versions and use word choice like that later. I don't know if I want to start with that. I'm thinking, okay, why hasn't it changed much? The story hasn't changed much because it's pretty simple, right? Like alligators in the sewers. There's not going to be a big background story of like some of the monster stories that we have as urban legends. There's a whole big background story of like, all right, the monster is actually like the undead of something happened and there was a battle and right, or here was this abandoned animal. Well, that's about alligators, right? But there isn't a big background story is my point. So I think, why hasn't it changed? Well, it's really simple and clear, maybe, and it's just consistently repeated. So, okay, all right. So the story is simple and consistently states that alligators live in the depths, maybe, of the city. Yeah. And then some versions. Okay, so let me just experiment. I'm going to cut this out. Just delete it, just like that. All right, now how does it look? Because I can always bring it back, right? Remember. Okay, so the story is simple and consistently states that alligators live in the depths of the city. Some of the versions I came across had variations on the specific details, such as the alligators were mutated into albinos. All right, so I can develop that more. But regardless, when I add my quote from my source to help me too, I think that would work, right? I don't know how interesting it is though. So, all right, the story is simple. That sounds kind of newspapery, right? The story is simple and consistently states that alligators live in the depths, that alligators, all right, I don't want to say are lurking, live in the belly of the city, maybe like that underbelly, right? It makes it sound low. And I might come back there and see if I can come up with some synonyms for live that would be more dramatic, like I did with lurking, right? I don't have one off the top of my head right now. So I think I might just highlight that and put a note on here about word choice. So, okay, come up with better word choice here. All right, that's a good enough note. Sometimes I will also just change the type, right? Like the color of the type, because that'll draw my eye to it. Okay, so the story, let's take the highlighting off of here because everything in this paragraph now should be about versions, right? So the story is simple and consistently states that alligators live in the belly of the city. Some of the versions I came across had variations on the details, right? And then there's single alligators. All right, depending on the version. Okay, this is good. This is good. So now the next sentence, if I just talked about all these, like that there's a little bit of variation to some of the specific details, I'm wondering if the next part, if I could say something about like, okay, regardless of the version, the details about how the alligators got there, right? Abandoned pets, that how the alligators got there and that they can't survive down there. All right, so I want that sentence, that topic sentence, have both of those ideas in it. Okay, so regardless of the version, the details of how I'm going to end up repeating alligators over and over, so I might try gators here. The details of how the gators got into the sewers and how they survived down there are unclear. Okay, how would that look? If I'm a reader coming to this, I've read through these paragraphs above, so regardless of the version, that's a little transition that connects up above here. Okay, regardless of the version, the details of how the gators got into the sewers and how they survived down there are unclear. So the rest of my paragraph should explain how they got down there, or at least what people say for the reasons of how they got down there, right? So that allows me to come back to this abandoned pets, and it allows me then, right, how they survived down there unclear, so I can then talk about the debunked part, that it's not possible, actually. Okay, so let's take a look and see. I might revise my writing a little bit as I go. Regardless of the version, the details of how the gators got into the sewers and how they survived down there are unclear. The vast majority of the incidents where people have found alligators loose can be traced back. So here, if I am going to cut out of, okay, and be traced back to abandoned pets. It is possible to buy a pet alligator even through the mail, but when they grow too big to take care of, people just turn them loose. Those that are rescued are put into zoos or animal sanctuaries. The claim that alligators could live and reproduce in the sewers has been debunked in multiple sources. Okay, I think I might, in the next video, I think we're going to talk about some transitions. So I think can connect this and have a little bit better flow. I'm not necessarily liking how this is flowing together, but okay, I think it still works for the topic sentence. I think that I need to include some transitional language in here to make those connections a little bit clearer though, right? Yeah, all right, because then I'm going to end up saying to my reader that they can't survive down there, right? Okay, I think this will work for now. But again, I think I'm going to rely on some transitions, which will be in the next video, for you to make that more clear to my readers, right? But I think I'm good for right now. Okay. Thanks for listening, and take a look at your own topic sentences, because you want to make sure as you're revising your drafts that you have a clear topic sentence at the start of that paragraph and that it's interesting. Do your best to come up with some of that engaging, interesting word choice so that you keep your reader going along with you. All right, thanks for listening and good luck on your writing.